Hi. So this is my Diet 3 response after reading Interstates, Chapter 3 of Emily Bernard's Black is the Body. I'm not feeling it today, I'm gonna be honest. I just took a Spanish test that took an hour and a half, and my allergies are killing me. So, yeah. But starting off with D with the scribe, um, basically what happens is that Bernard structures this part of this chapter in a very punctual manner. So she has like part one, but she doesn't say part. She just has like section one all the way to 10. Similar to like you would see like in a manual or like the process of things happening, sequence, stuff like that. But basically, she's on a road trip visiting like her family and stuff, and her husband in the story is joining her for one of the very first times. And so basically, as they're on this road trip, she's recollecting all of these moments that she's ever happened because this is a road trip that she's been on before, but now it's on with a new meaning to it because her husband is with it on it with her. So she's retelling that concept and that reiteration of it. For I for I'm gonna be honest. I don't have everything pulled up from in front of me, but I is going to be intentions or like why she did it this way. The reason why she structured the chapter in this manner was in order to have like it. So like the part one and two really convey what it means to like have an inner state of memory or have an inner state of interactions. Inner state in itself becomes very metaphorical because when she refers to like the black guy to traveling, which I think stopped like in 1972. I don't know the exact date. She's conceptualizing what it means to be a person of color and what it means to be traveling throughout the U.S., but then also what it means to be a person who's just simply existing. And how you have these normal routes you normally do or these routines that you make that make you feel comfortable. And when there comes change, that change isn't always positive, or when it does happen, you don't expect it. And she uses her husband's white body as this means of discussion, opposed to the black bodies he's surrounded in this environment that she's not used to like having a foreign body in. But before I get into everything else, that was E. So now diet E. What that was I. So now E. Evaluate and apply it to my life. So for example, uh, it's hard to say, mainly because in many ways, like I am a Hispanic gay male, and the way that I interact with the things that are familiar and unfamiliar are very different. So for example, I like routine and I like things that are familiar, but in many ways I get annoyed by it, and so therefore I try to find ways of breaking out of that familiarity in order to bring some form of in order to create dissonance in my own life. So for example, like I got my nose pierced like 3 weeks ago because the semester was like it's rough, but I also need to change shit up. And then like a week ago after that, I got a new tattoo. So then I was like, I do things like that in order to create like new meaning to my life. But then also like for example like when I'm back home in San Antonio with my family and stuff, and we travel from San Antonio to Austin, which is an hour 30 drive. I remember this drive because I've been taking it ever since I was like 5 years old up until now, and I know this drive by heart, and I can drive it without anyone telling me. When applying like actual concepts of like traveling on road to road, like I know where the Buc-ee's is. I know where we used to stop for lunch and dinner. I know what the small towns in between are. I remember stopping in those small towns and everything. Um, but I've never like had to like consider like my safety in that process. So like that's very different than Bernard's. Um, but now when we get into the media res in the application of Bernard's story, application with theory and stuff like that, more some conceptual things, I would say that the reason why Bernard starts off this story talking about there being a lot of anxiety and a lot of like tensions high in the car, because she wants to create a familiar resonance or like whatever the C word is between her and the audience, being in the car and being high tension, and then she creates a juxtaposition, explaining how like growing up like this is something very calming and stuff like that. Um, and so therefore like, it throws us into the story, but then as she has the sections of like the chapter set out from 1 through 10, these sections are separated, or the way that they start, like the beginning of each section is like a very rough introduction or very like in a situation, and then it flows into like a de-evolution of what exactly is happening, and it adds more context. Therefore, it was like a de-escalation of like events, and it becomes like very explanatory. So yeah, that's why she does that. But in this chapter, I really like it a lot. Personally, mainly because she tackles a lot like of her own personal ideology, her personal philosophies and stuff like that, and things that she struggled with when growing up. So like for example, when she's talking about how like her father has laid out this interstate in front of her, or like this idea of who he wants her to be by not talking to other educated women, by not talking to white men, not talking to other, not like doing certain things that he wants of her in order to have this certain life that he expects of her. She denies or like rewrites the map that he's handed her, and she creates her own out of wanting to explore, and wanting to find out who exactly Emily is. And this is also like tied into like how Bernard's mom didn't want to teach her how to cook, because she didn't want her daughter to be tied down to the kitchen or like a motherly or a maternal role within a relationship. She wanted her to be out. She wanted her to have that freedom of the domesticity. And like in both ways, Bernard's mom and dad both create possibilities to where the person who Bernard is now, or Emily is now, is exactly who they wanted her to be, but in many ways it's also not. But yeah, my throat hurts, and I'm like over by 40 seconds. Yeah. Yeah. Damn, like, you gotta do a lot of these, don't you? Well, bye, Nicole.